Hello and welcome to episode 261 of Level Up Your Career, 60 minutes of live Q&A where your questions drive the show. I am Shanice Mitchell-Cox and I will be your host for today. Ella, Ranganand and Deepthi are in the social chat, so please let them know your name and the city where you are joining from, and they will post a link to vote up the questions that you would like answered the most, and of course for you to add your own. If your question is selected, your name will appear in the credits at the end of the show. So get yours in early and stay with us to see that happen. Today, we will be discussing your must-have project management templates in 2024, part 1. This is the first part of our series on this topic, where we explore the templates that help project managers with their projects. Effective project management depends on using the appropriate templates to streamline processes and create project success. But do all templates should be relied on, should all templates be relied on? And can they significantly aid project managers in achieving successful outcomes with their projects? We're going to explore this topic and our expert panelists are going to help us explore this even further. So let's jump in and meet them today. I would like to welcome Maurice Diamond. He has a background in complex procurement and commercials. He is a leading tutor and coach for the World Bank CP3 qualifications over at Training Bitesize and delights in seeking his clients to improve their project and management skills. Welcome back to Level Up.
Thank you.
It's wonderful to have you and thanks for giving up your time today. The second panelist I would like to introduce today is Richard Campbell. He is the Director and Product Engagement Lead at the Agile Business Consortium. Richard is responsible for developing and delivering the Agile Business Consortium's portfolio of products that advance business agility. Richard has spent his career working in the advanced technology sector in a mix of commercial and project management roles. He is also very familiar on Level Up. So welcome back, Richard. We are delighted to have you on today's show.
Thanks, Shanice. Yes, it's a pleasure to be here and to talk to the audience about project management templates. I mean, this is a major issue for most people. How many times you've gone into a project where there's a preformed idea about what the project is going to be, sometimes appropriate, sometimes highly inappropriate. And we've all been, many of us have been victim of this. So I think this would be a great topic to cover.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us today. And my third panelist for today is Sarah Olaifa. She is a project management at HMRC. She has led and delivered on many complex projects throughout her career. She is a neurodiversity champion and has a fantastic podcast that I cannot recommend enough. Divine Enigma, showcasing her passion for neurodiversity. Welcome back to Level Up, Sarah.
Thank you so much, Shanice. It's been lovely being back again. I think this is maybe fourth or third time I've been on. So yeah, lovely to always be here.
It's wonderful to have you. Thank you for giving up your morning this morning for Level Up Your Career. My fourth panelist for today is Mart Rovers. Mart is the president at Interprom, where he focuses on helping clients adopt leading practice in technologies, from service and business relationship management to projects and change. Welcome back to Level Up, Mart.
Shanice, thank you. Thanks for having me. And it's great to be back, and especially with such esteemed group of panelists. I can't wait for the questions to come in. I did find a quote, Shanice, and it was maybe not directly related to templates, but it was definitely to do with repeatability, what these templates should help with. And it was a quote from W. Edwards Deming. Who doesn't know Deming? He said once, if you can't describe what you're doing as a process, you don't know what you're doing.
Oh, we always love your quotes on Level Up, Mart. So thank you for sharing that with us. It doesn't feel right without a Mart quote if you're on the show. So thank you. And completing our panel today is Robert Snyder. Robert's 30-year career has included roles as a developer, a database administrator, project manager, change manager, and sales enablement. He has earned PMP and Agile certifications and is currently a solopreneur, formulating and proposing what should combat VUCA and succeed software-centric hybrid methodologies. He's also just released his second book, so he is now a two-book author. So thank you for joining us today, Robert. It's great to have you on the show.
Thank you, Shanice. Pleasure to be here. I think the topic of templates, it pertains to governance and discipline. What's not to love about governance and discipline, right? So provocative topic.
Absolutely. And we're going to jump straight in and get those questions answered. So speaking of questions, level up your career would not be the same without our wonderful question master. And today we are joined by Suchitra, who's based in the beautiful city of Bangalore. How was your weekend, Suchitra?
Hi, Shanice. Hello to the panelists as well and our viewers who have dialed into the Zoom webinar. My weekend was great and we have a lot of questions for today, so I can't wait to start asking them.
Wonderful. Let's jump straight in with the first question, please.
Of course. So our first question is from Ryan Peters, who asks, templates feel restrictive, rigid, and not agile. Why should I be willing to use them?
Oh, this is a great question. We're going to go to Richard and then Robert first.
Well, now, templates. So I think it's a very good question about the idea of them feeling restrictive and rigid. I think the skill of using any form of template in any domain you're in is getting the right one. And to use it blindly is a recipe for disaster. And I think that's really what we're going to be exploring here. What is the necessary thinking process that needs to go ahead in assessing what is the right way so it's not restrictive and rigid, but actually supports the objective of the project? So I'll leave that as a kickoff because I'm sure we're going to be covering this area in more detail.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Richard. We'll go over to Robert now.
I believe templates are an instrumental way to minimize reinventing the wheel. Many teams don't learn from past teams, past successes and past failures. And so when you're leaning on templates, you have a better chance to improve the speed and quality of your work, standing on the shoulders of previous teams.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And we will head over to Mart now.
Great answer so far, indeed. I totally agree with what has been said so far. The repeatability is a huge element of this. I think what I sometimes notice is that these templates are being perceived as in they're not living documents. In other words, a template also needs to go through a life cycle and is always up for improvement. And there should be an approach from an agile perspective, as in, what can we do to make the template even better? And then it's about the usability and the quality of the data that's captured in the template. So in other words, it should not feel rigid. In other words, be open and make suggestions for improvement.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Mart. And Sarah?
Templates do not have to be rigid. So I think you need to get that very clear. They don't have to be rigid. You can make your templates friendly. You can make them very streamlined. You can make them adaptable, and also understand when you're looking at project management templates, they are a living document. So things will change. Just like a project, things will change within the project lifecycle. Because projects are about working with people. So people are not going to be static. They're going to be changing. So I think you should see your templates as a way of organizing your thoughts and what you're doing within the project, but don't see it as something that you should look at as a rigid process to follow. But yeah, we could discuss this in more detail anyway when we have more questions. But yeah, that's how I would approach that.
Well, thanks so much, Sarah. And Maurice, if you'd like to finish us off on this question.
Okay, so thank you. Just to say, apart from agreeing with everybody else, that right from the start, let's think about our template as being more of a model rather than the mandate. We're not going to follow or we shouldn't be thinking of following our template blindly. We should be seeing it as something which has been proven, which works, and then we should see how we can then use it on any particular project that we're on, and as has been said, adapt it appropriately.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, panel. They were some great answers. And Ryan, I hope the answers have helped you today. Suchitra, if we could take the next question, please.
The next question is from Laura. What are the pros and cons of project management templates?
Oh, we love a question about pros and cons. So whoever would like to start us off, get your hand up early and I will come to you first. Robert has saved me. Here you go, Robert, you can go first.
So we've partially addressed the pros of templates, that they can help set expectations, reduce surprises for project team members. One disadvantage that I can think of is it can risk having users of a template shut their brains off. And as other panelists have hinted at before, you can never shut your brains off. So let's just make sure that every template we use, is it perfect as is? Often not. And so we just can't shut off our brains, even if we have a template and are using it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Robert. And Mart?
Definitely a pro that I always like about these templates there. What I like about the template is when it makes me think about something. Oh yeah, I didn't even think of that, or it sparked something that I would have totally ignored if the template wouldn't have reminded me. As in, you have to address this particular topic as well. So that surprise factor in a nice way, it's what I perceive as a big pro, and it makes you feel more confident. It makes you feel more, I've got my bases covered. And of course, a lot of that has to do with not reinventing the wheel. But that surprise factor is a big pro for me.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Mart. Richard?
So I'd be looking at the nature of the project that you are employing to determine whether something is going to be a pro or a con in supporting it. So there are some, the nature of some projects is they are far more predictable, as in the project plan is there. You can lay out a recipe and a clear process end to end to go through, and a template is going to be particularly valuable. It goes back to the point. I'm going to say, I think it was Mart who mentioned the point about it's reusing ideas that have come before. Now, if your project is following a process which is a well-trodden path, why would you not use that wisdom? But there are plenty of projects which are at the opposite end of the street. We haven't been here before. And I suggest that when you're at that, we haven't been here before, trying to apply a template is going to be less helpful than in the former case. Now, that's down to good judgment as to where you sit in that continuum. So the pros and cons have got to revolve around the nature of the beast in which you are operating.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Richard. Sarah?
I feel there's a lot of benefit and pros to having templates. Because what will generally happen is if you don't have a template or a standardized way of following through for a project, you kind of have everything in your head. You're not actually following some kind of standardization or following a project through. So it is quite important to have templates, but don't be so reliant on the template to follow through with the project. So you have to get a good balance of it. The problem I find is people are focused so much on following the processes and templates and not actually checking the environment they're in with the project they're following, that they forget that you're working with people. So just to understand that the templates are a way of capturing what's going on so that you don't forget, you know what's happening, and not to get too overly rigid about it, because that's where the con comes into it. It becomes something you're following through too much and you're not actually understanding what's going on within the project. So there has to be a balance, and that's how I would look at the pros and cons. Don't see it too much as I have to stick to it or it's going to take a long time. Yeah, it may take time, but you need to put that time in to know exactly where you are within your project and where you are within the life cycle.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Sarah. And Maurice?
Thank you. So my issue is to do with templates that become an industry. So people start to complete the templates during a project, and it's the right thing to do. I don't have a problem with that. But the focus is on the completion of the templates, the completion of the documents themselves, rather than progressing the project. Now, clearly, you have to complete the documentation to move forward. But I see an industry often growing on large projects. with lots of people who are involved in completing templates. And sometimes you wonder whether it's just about completing the template for its own sake, rather than actually the advantages that it can drive through in terms of delivering the project.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. Suchitra, should we take our next question, please?
Of course you can, Shanice. The next question is from Melvio. Should there be a greater focus on the information and evidence rather than dogmatic use of project templates?
Oh, this is a great question. Thanks, Melvio. We'll start with Mart on this question.
Yes, indeed. Leave it up to Melvio. He always has great questions. He's one of our biggest fans when it comes to this particular topic. He's always there. So totally with Melvio on this one as well, that it shouldn't be as in we've completed the template so we can check all the boxes and therefore we assume that the template was filled out correctly or that it has quality information that is actually beneficial for the project. So you're absolutely right, Melvio. It's not about forcing people into, as I said, checking the boxes, but it needs to benefit the project as a whole, the team, the outcomes, and so on. So it's definitely more about the content than that we can say, yes, every a component of the project template has some data in it, whether it's good or not. We don't care. At least we can say, we use a template. So definitely agree with you there that it's all about the quality.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Mart. And we will go to Richard next, please.
Yeah, so going back to the details of the question is, so focus on information and evidence. Well, I think we should all be using data to drive our decision making. This is always a very positive point, but very often early in the project, there isn't much data or evidence. So you rely very strongly on the leadership within the organization to the project manager sits within a team of leaders. Very often you've got a visionary, you've got some form of a solution architect. There may be others who perform leadership roles in shaping the project. And it's the data that they can provide that you should be using as the primary method for shaping the project early on. And so I would always be looking at that as my starting point rather than specifically the template ever. But it does go back to the point previously, which is, what is the nature of the thing that you are working on? And is the template therefore going to leverage you more advantage rather than the project specific data that you might get from the other project leaders?
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Richard. Sarah?
I believe that information and evidence is far more important when it comes to project management because a project is something that's ever changing. By nature, templates are going to be generic, so we're going to follow through what a template will have. And you have to identify what that project needs within the time you're managing the project. It will have its specific needs, requirements, what the content of the project is, if there are risks are going to occur, there's a dependency, something might happen. So it's important to rely more on the evidence and the information that you have at that time, because today something would be fine, tomorrow something else will change. And also, if you have a more flexible approach to how you look at your project, you can also see that it's constantly going to evolve day by day, new challenges. So the templates are just there to kind of update that. I don't think you should be focusing so much on project templates. You should be focusing mostly on how the project is developing whilst you are managing that project from a project management perspective. That's how I would answer that.
Fantastic. That was a fantastic point there, Sarah. Thank you so much. Robert?
In Milvio's question, there's this word information. And what his question reminds me of is that templates shape Q&A for every project team. Templates basically say, I know that every project, the answers are unique, but I'm asserting this template because the majority of the questions should be the same. And so the information that a team captures as it populates a template, sequence matters, right? Because we know that a team answering these questions or completing templates in the wrong order you're risking rework, misunderstandings, assumptions, and that sort of thing. So yes, I love the emphasizing the information, the content. That is the A of the Q&A. And templates help us. They remind us that if you don't answer a question in the right order, that information doesn't disappear. It just hides from you. And so the Milvio's hint about information, of course, that's crucial because usually teams are best served by answering certain questions in a pretty predictable, unsurprising sequence.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Robert. And Milvio, I hope those answers have helped you today. Thanks for your question as well and for tuning in. Suchitra, should we take the next question?
Sure, we can. Our next question is from George. There are lots of free templates available online. As they are free, are they any good?
Ooh, this is a good question. Thanks for submitting, George. We'll go to Richard and then Robert first.
So we've quite deliberately at the Agile Business Consortium only put a few templates in because you're quite right. There are lots of them that are around, and very often the best templates, they are very they're sort of domain specific. So you'll find some in construction, you'll find some in manufacturing, you'll find some in financial management. There'll be a bunch of them in all sorts of different sectors. And so how good a quality they are is going to be a function of who is managing them. And that was a discussion that came up before. So if these things are created and left to fester and they don't learn, that you don't get involved with that feedback loop, they're going to become increasingly less useful, I would suggest. So very much it's a matter of the project manager, before they adopt the ones that they seriously consider which ones they're going to use, they want to be aware of who is actively managing the upkeep of those? When were they last updated? When were they last used successfully? And taking that feedback is going to be a best way of assessing that. There's certainly a lot of them.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Richard. Robert?
I largely see the cost as irrelevant. I wouldn't say it's completely irrelevant, but I believe there are enough thought leaders, bloggers out there that are able and willing to provide their best stuff for free. So I largely don't consider cost in their usefulness. I also believe that no person should be selecting templates for their team in isolation. These sorts of decisions about what templates are best, those are team decisions. And going through that exercise as a team to select what templates do we want to lean on. It reminds me of the improv tenet of even a bad idea can be a bridge to a good idea. So even if you see a bad template that's free out there, it might be useful conversation for a team because it can be even a bad template can be a bridge to a useful good template.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Robert. Sarah?
I agree. There are a lot of good templates out there that are free. You can pick them up, but just take them with a pinch of salt. I think when looking at free templates, again, as Mart had said, that you should look at the templates with your team and just check if the templates are adding value to what project you're delivering. There's some templates that are not necessarily great and they may not add value to what you're trying to deliver within the project, but they're a good starting point if you want to get your head around trying to, maintain your project and make sure that everything is on track. So I would say they are good free templates, but just make sure that you oversee them with your team. And if any adjustments are required within that template, you can make those adjustments as needed.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Sarah. And Mart, if you could finish us off on this question.
As with anything that is free, right? Always be cautious. But when the free templates are provided by an organization that is active and is maintaining them, and you see them putting out different versions of these templates, that should definitely give you some assurance, as in there is some quality that may come from it. Yes, you would expect, of course, when you pay for templates that you get a better quality. Now, since, yes, I'm a little bit biased here, given my familiarity with the Praxis framework, which is a free project program portfolio management framework. They actually templates also for free. And as I said, there's a large group of people behind this this framework, and the templates are definitely of quality. Hopefully, you don't mind the pitch.
Absolutely, never for Praxis Framework. So yeah, as Mark said, praxisframework.org, head over there. There's some great templates on there, so have a little look. Wonderful. Suchitra, if you would like to ask the next question, please.
The next question is from Paula. Some templates are project specific. Some templates apply to more than one project. Can you share a favorite from both categories?
Oh, this is a good question, Paula. Thank you for submitting. We'll go to Robert first.
My favorite project independent template would be a current state script or a process flow, because so many teams, so many organizations neglect current state documentation. It's unglamorous, so you can involve more junior employees in documenting current state scripts, current state process flows, that sort of thing. Documenting current state, it reduces your documentation debt, your tech debt, and it shows you're empathetic, that you care about the current points of pain of the stakeholder that you're about to impact. When I think about a favorite project-specific template, ADKAR comes to mind, the ProSci change management framework, and I believe the R is neglected sometimes, so reinforcement. And the template that I use for the R of ADKAR, I call a closure report. So at the end of a project, I believe a sponsor needs to report about how well the project is tracking to the value proposition, declare the project closed, give the team a sense of closure, a sense of moving on. And so that would be my project-specific deliverable that I'd like to, kind of promote here is a closure report, loosely mapping to the R of ADKAR.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Robert. Richard?
So I'd like to sort of twist the question a little bit. So we would, in a previous company, we were regularly delivering communication systems, but to very different customers with slightly different requirements. But the underlying delivery process or the project that each delivery was associated with was fairly well predictable. It followed a fairly common path. And as a result, the company invested very heavily in coming up with the template that worked for it, because it knew all the different parts of the organization, all the different suppliers, all of the different questions and regulatory steps that were needed in delivering that project. So that template was critically important of really accelerating the process of getting the project up to speed, giving everyone visibility of when things were going to happen, and start to plan your resources well ahead. But not all projects look like that. That's the trouble. That's exactly the problem. And so going to the opposite extreme, using a template in the construction sector where the method of construction was varied, because it can vary quite phenomenally, far less useful, because it was taking you or asking you inappropriate questions for the method or the approach that was being used. So it was almost like you spent more time trying to make the template fit the project than actually it was taking on a leap forward. So that's a sort of practical experience I would advise people to think about in considering their templates.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Richard. And we'll go to Mart next.
This is a great question, Paula. Thank you for that. And so Robert was talking about an R. I have another R for this. The answer to this that has to do with risk. The risk relates to projects and cause and effect diagrams to help with risk identification, risk analysis. definitely project specific, but they can also carry over to other projects. I mean, there is definitely a commonality when it's about generic risks that are typical for many projects. So it's a little bit of a pet peeve of mine as far as the risk portion, since unfortunately I don't see their consistency is going on as about risk management when it's related to projects or is totally being ignored or forgotten. So definitely trying to put that in the spotlight here.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Mart. And Sarah, if you'd like to wrap us up on this question.
I think the question was, can you share the favorites from both categories? I feel my favorite is always, multi project templates. I feel they're quite straightforward and they're very easy to adapt to any project that you want to work on. So obviously things from like the project initiation document to, I love, managing a risk register, and some companies called a RAID log, some is called a Mart. But I prefer things where I know that it's standardized. I can apply it to a different project and I'm not having to customize too much. It makes me kind of manage my projects a lot more effectively. Being someone that's neurodiverse, I like projects that I can just look at them, have a standardized template and know that, okay, I can apply it to this project and just learn from it and get so much from the team. So I would say that's my favorite, but they both have their benefits in different ways, and they both add value to whatever project you're working on.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, panel. Those insights were fantastic. And Paula, I hope those answers have helped you today. So if you are watching in the social chat, please introduce yourself, let us know your name and where you are watching from, and we will do a shout out on the show to say hello and welcome you to today's episode. So on that note, shall we take our next question then, panel? Suchitra?
Sure. So the next question is from Tony in Reading. Are project management templates a project collaborative document? For it to be agile, should all of the project team have access and be able to contribute?
Oh, this is a great question. Thanks so much, Tony. We'll go to Robert and then Richard.
I see 4 different questions. There's 4 separate things to respond to in this question. So are templates collaborative? Yes, I think it's rare for a template to be completed or populated by one person and one person only, decisions by fiat. So yes, I believe it's collaborative. My interpretation, because I think that Agile is a huge umbrella, and I'm going to interpret Agile as that your go live events are close together as opposed to waterfall, where your go live events are far apart. So I'm not convinced Agile has relevance to the question. And then again, who has access to view a completed template where they may or may not contribute? And I think it just depends on the nature of the template, of who gets their say, who gets a voice in shaping the answers of that Q&A that a template represents.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Robert. And Richard?
Yeah, so I similarly struggled, as Robert sort of outlined here. So I feel that the collaborative aspect isn't so much about in selecting or interpreting the template, but a project, it has to be a living project management. The project itself needs to be growing, and it can only evolve and develop with that in that collaborative way, or that's the most effective way of doing it. So everyone should be contributing to it. But the question is, to what degree does the project manager need to be able to take this collaboration, but then keep control of the project so it makes coherent sense? Or otherwise, too much collaboration, too many people modifying the project plan as you're going along means that it never reaches a stable state, and as a result, it can't be relied upon to guide anybody. So there is a fine line between what exactly is the role of the project manager relative to the rest of the team in order to harness the best of that collaborative effort. But certainly the idea of the project manager hoarding the project plan and keeping it away from everyone is the opposite end of that scale. So you need to strike that correct balance.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Richard. Sarah?
Ooh, it's an interesting question. I would say that, yes, you should be collaborative in terms of having access to project documentation. But my thing is, it's about who has the access and permissions to edit those documentations. Sometimes when we have too many fingers in the pie, too many people involved, we don't actually get much progress with the project. So yes, people should have an overview. They should know what's going on, but we don't want every single person having access to the document to be making changes as and when they feel like it. It's important as a project manager, you have full control of your project and you know exactly what's happening. And that's why you having regular updates with the team, scheduling reviews, having continuous feedback. And therefore, people don't have to be tampering with the documentation, and also making sure that you give the right access to the right people within the project, because it's not everybody that needs to have access to all your documentation to be making edits unnecessarily. So I would kind of answer that question. It kind of covers a few questions in that, but yeah, there should be contribution, but it doesn't mean every contribution requires access. So that's right. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Maurice?
So I do agree with what everybody is saying. So I want to give an example of a project that I was on that might help people with this issue about access and control. And I might sound a bit like I'm a control freak, but the example relates to a very, very large government project that I did a number of years ago, where every team had their own work breakdown structure. It was completed on a weekly basis, sometimes fortnightly. And there was no access between teams. Quite straightforward. You filled in your documentation and then it went upwards, and you were invited each week to talk to the manager about your particular progress. It was then decided that this was far too much control. So now they opened up the documents so everybody had access to everybody else's work breakdown structure. Not the ability to amend it, but just to see it. And what we then saw, believe it or not, and maybe it was the nature of the people who were on the project, but how manipulative people became. Because if they were actually falling behind, they would start to look at other project areas and to see how they could blame those other areas before they got to their review meeting with the project manager. Now, you might say, well, if that's a one-off, it's a one-off, or if there's a little bit of it happening. But it became rampant across the project. So on that particular project, even access to the equivalent level of project progress became dangerous in terms of the overall impact on the project. And in fact, access was then restricted. And believe it or not, progress then accelerated. But I think, there's always a medium path to take with these things.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. That was extremely insightful. Thank you. And Mart, if you could jump in and finish this question off.
Just quickly, it was brought up earlier by Robert. We use the word governance of these templates, and maybe not so much as far as the template itself, what data it has, but more about who has access to it. Sarah brought up a very good point here. In other words, who should have access to what, specifically if you have sensitive data that is captured in these templates. And when you have third parties on your project, where it says in none of their business as far as, some information that should not leave the organization. So there is some guardrails needed, some governance needed, whatever you want to call it, when it's about who has access to what and what is visible to what. And Maurice brought up a great point here, as in, if the culture is not ready for it, as far as sharing everything with everybody, then that governance is needed even more if we're going to use them as for blame games, finger pointing.
Fantastic point there, Mart. Thank you so much. So we're going to welcome some of the social contributors today. So we can see Istavan, he is joining from Sheffield. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we hope you are enjoying the episode. We've got Ian Green joining us. Hello, Ian. Thank you for spending your Monday with us today. And Opeyemi is joining us from the UK. Wonderful to have you in the audience. Thank you for joining us today. And Vodex is joining from Indonesia. It's lovely to have so many people from across the globe joining us today. So thank you for spending your morning or afternoon or evening for some of us with us on the panel, learning about your must-have project management templates. And on that note, I think we should ask some more questions. So Suchitra, can we take the next question, please?
Sure. So question is from George. Are templates unique to each project management method delivery? For example, Agile, waterfall, Praxis, etc.
Oh, this is a great question. Sarah, if you'd like to start us on this question, please.
Yeah, sure. So each project management environment does have its own type of template. With Agile, it's more focused on iterative development, free from feedbacks. Prince 2 are templates which are highly structured, they're process driven, with like a strong focus on like the governance and control. And I come from more of a Prince 2 background, and they usually include like a project brief or stage plan or in highlight reports. So every single project management methodology has its type of template for the environment that you're working in. So yeah, and you need to be very aware of the environment you're working in with the type of templates you're using and the team that you're working with as well.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that insight, Sarah. Richard?
Yeah, so in some, I mean, my focus is very much on the Agile side, and the sort of templates which we get involved with aren't so much about shaping the overall project, but it's to say there are certain deliverables during the project which are quite useful, and some of those templates are quite generic. And so there are, for instance, there are various reports which are useful to be able to produce. And if you have a template for those reports, which are shared and help project governance, which again goes back to the point I think just about all the panelists were talking about, but Mart most recently was talking about this. This is very important. It saves time. It tells you exactly the data you need to collect and who you need to present it to. So those sorts of templates can be very helpful for a project. So it might not be specific to the style, but the reports you need would relate to exactly as Sarah was talking about. What is the nature of the project management process that you're going on to, whether it is Prince or Agile or whichever. That's going to define the nature of those reports that you need to produce.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Richard. George, I hope those answers has helped you today. So thank you for submitting your question. We are going to take our next question now. So Suchitra.
Next question from Lorraine. Are there any templates or documents that you feel are overkill or counterproductive?
Oh, this we normally see smiles when we get some of these questions. So we will work our way around the panel. Robert has jumped in. So, we will go to Robert first.
My answer is going to be controversial because FAQs are everywhere. What I worry about with an FAQ, frequently asked questions, is the typical timing that they arise is near the end of a project or even after the go live. So what an FAQ essentially does is broadcast to the stakeholders, hey, look at all the things that the project team missed that now instead of, they could have been in the training materials, but no, we're going to create a separate document. Or God forbid, these omissions, these oversights might have originally belonged in like a future state process document very early in the project. So an FAQ inventories omissions, gaps, blind spots for a project team that originated perhaps early in the project, but even more conservatively in training materials. And so I think FAQs are counterproductive because now you are asking your stakeholders to go to a third location to find information that is typically out of context of the training materials and of your future state, now current state process. So it's controversial. But FAQs, I think, are counterproductive.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Robert. Richard?
So I took a bit of time to think about this question, and I think hence the hands are quite slow in responding to it. But actually, it's a remarkably perceptive question, because actually this is going very much to the heart of the wisdom of the project manager to be able to say, okay, let's focus on what actually is our purpose here. Looking at the nature of the project, what is counterproductive? You with any template, with any documentation that you're producing, it should only ever be necessary and sufficient to keep the project moving forward. And anything, and then this is something that Robert was alluding to here, if you are delaying the project, you're getting people distracted by producing reports which effectively are of no value or actually of less production than getting them focused on something that's more important, then that is counterproductive of its nature. So what I think that the question turns to is wisdom on the part of the project manager to say, no, we do not need this. This is an inappropriate step. This is not something that is actually moving the project forward, and being very firm on that and helping people focus on the things which are delivering most value on the project. That must be the focus of the project manager.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Richard. Mart?
I think I'm going to keep this one simple. I mean, if these templates are overkill or counterproductive, you have the wrong templates. It's that simple. I would say, take a hard look as in why are they overkill, why are they counterproductive, and start changing and improving them. I mean, they're a perfect way to share information and capture information. Information that has to be shared. And if it's something that is in the template format, people know where to find the information because they're used to the templates and make it easier for them to locate it where certain information can be found. It's a template. It's a tool. It should make your life easier.
Yeah, fantastic point there, Mart. Thank you so much. Sarah?
I think you what was previously said about the wisdom of you as a project manager. You have to understand the team that you're working with. If you're working on a very small or simple project, is it necessary for you to have a risk management plan or a change control log? Is it necessary if the project is quite simple? And again, it's the team experience. Do they kind of know what to do? Do you need to put all these training documents? It's really down to you to kind of look at the team that you're in, look at the dynamics, and actually ask yourself, do I need these templates, or do I need these documentations for this team? If the team is kind of self-sufficient, it might not be needed. If the project is really simple and not very complex, do I need to put a comms plan together? Does it make sense? So it's for you to look at those things when you're looking into using your tools, such as the templates and the documentation, to help you progress the project in itself. So that's how I would answer that.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Sarah. Maurice?
So my issue is to do with documentation that is provided as guidance to support a project. So what I would mean is that let's take the things that Sarah was just talking about, different areas of project risk management and so on. And at a particular level, it's fine. But if you've not done, say, risk management, you'll then be looking for the next level of detail and then the next level of detail. And by the time you finish looking at these documents, they're hundreds of pages long because everybody has different areas that they want to look at. Now, if you are a project manager and you have to look at every one of those different areas in detail, you probably shouldn't be the project manager at that point in time. You should have really have developed through project management. Or as Sarah's saying, you should be starting clearly on a more simplistic project. And hopefully the documentation will be able to hold you at a particular level rather than drive you down to a tick list of, I've got to do this. What do I need to do next? I've got to do this next, and so on, which I think can be counterproductive, actually.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much. Great answers there, panel. I think we've got time for one more question before we go over to closing remarks. So, Suchitra, can we take the next question, please?
Of course, we have a question from Rodex Jordan. Does the template offer different levels of complexity depending on project size and scope?
Ooh, fantastic question. Thanks for submitting, Rodex. Richard, if we could, have you answer the question, please.
Yeah, no trouble at all. Yeah, great question, Rodex. So this bears in my mind a relationship that can be addressed by the Cynefin framework. So when you're dealing with a very complicated project, I know that the question uses complexity, but let's focus on complicated. You can have immensely complicated projects which are very predictable in nature. You just need expert input to shape the project. May have many moving parts, but it's highly predictable. It is something you can lay out with skill, and a template would be immensely helpful in the productivity of that project management process. However, when you move across to true complexity, as the Cynefin framework indicates, complexity rather than complicated implies that there is great deals of unknown. The complexity of it can't be known by an individual. So you can't do it up front. The very nature of the project, it will have to learn as you go along. And actually using templates under those circumstances, in many cases, is going to be highly dangerous. So you need to probe the project, take a few steps forward, and then replan, and then probe and replan. And I think understanding the nature of your domain is so important in order to decide what is going to work and what's not going to work.
Wonderful. That was fantastic. Thanks so much, Richard. Sarah?
I believe with project management templates generally, they differ on levels of how complex the project is, how big the project is, the scope of the project, whether the document aligns with the project's specific needs. And you can look at core modules or optional modules that you have within a template. We can even look at a scalable template. So you can have a simplified version of a template or have a detailed version. It really just depends on the project size and scope. And some templates do require you to be customizable in terms of what sections you're going to have in the template, or like details you need to change. So, for example, you might have a template that talks about the project schedule or risk management or a communications plan. But it really, you need to kind of look at the level of what your project needs in order to accustom the template to what the project outcomes or deliverables are required within that project itself. So I would say yes to that question. It does offer different levels of complexity depending on the project size and its scope.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Sarah. And thanks so much, panel. We've had some great answers today and some great questions. So I'd like to thank our producers for your excellent questions today. Great job. And watch out for your name in the credits if your question was selected. Panel, it's time for your closing remarks. So I will start with Maurice first.
So thank you. So it's been a very interesting discussion. And I think we're all, I think, agreed that there are pros and cons associated with templates, and they have to be used appropriately and in the right environment. One of the things I'd just like to add, which hasn't sort of come through, is that we shouldn't be doing this in isolation, even choosing those templates. And there should be people that we can speak to. It's always helpful if you're a project manager to have a mentor and somebody who has perhaps used these templates previously, knows how far you should use them, how far they are adaptable, and so on. And I think that is quite important, rather than just looking at a template, reading it, and perhaps misreading it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And thanks for joining us on the panel today. Richard, if I could take your closing remarks, please.
I think that the management or the use of templates is such a common theme, and it's great that it gets aired like this, and everyone shares both their skepticism and their joy or advantage of using templates. It's a really fine art, and it is taken for granted as to how to go about doing it. And so I think it's a great idea that we get together people with a bit of experience and explain what's useful and what's not useful to guide a new project manager into where they should go.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Richard. And thanks for joining us as well today. It's always lovely having you on the show. Sarah, could I take your closing remarks, please?
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much for having me on the show today. I believe templates are a key tool needed within a project. You need it for your project plans. You need it for your execution of the project. You need it for your closure of the project. You need it. But there's some things that you need to kind of think about very intricately, really think about it. First of all, the key for project documentations is that you can tailor your templates and fit it in line with the project specific needs. Try to be flexible with the structure of your templates. Collaboration, as we know, is key, but again, collaboration with the right people and making sure that you can make the adjustments as and when needed. And just remember to continuously improve your templates all the time, review them, take on things like lessons learned. It's key, because when you have your templates, you know exactly where your project is going and things that you can quickly change as and when you need, and when and how the project is kind of moving in the direction that it's moving in, whether that's going to the left or to the right. You have your template to kind of see that and know where to go. So yeah, that's my closing remarks. And thanks everyone, and having a really amazing panel today as well.
Thank you so much. And thanks for joining us on the show. It's always lovely having you here. So we can't wait to welcome you back in the future. Mart, if I could take your closing remarks, please.
Well, certainly. Great questions from our audience. And thank you, Suchitra, for selecting those to keep the topic. I mean, templates, right? I mean, could potentially be a very boring topic, but it's, I think, a very information-rich episode, also because of the answers given. So I was talking about making lives easier, and I found this quote from Robert Heinlein, who once said, progress doesn't come from early risers. He said, progress is made by lazy people looking for easier ways to do things.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And I love your quotes. Thanks for sharing them with us when you're on the show, Mart. And Robert, if I could take your closing remarks, please.
Thank you, Shanice. First of all, pleasure to see the panelists that I've worked with before, Richard and Mart, and pleasure to meet and work with Sarah and Maurice today. My closing comment about templates, what comes to mind is we've talked a lot about the administration, the mechanics of templates. And I think it's worth distinguishing that, yes, although templates can be very administrative, they shape a culture as well to improve repeatability, predictability, minimizing surprises. So let's not see templates strictly as administrative. They absolutely are culture shaping. So in today's session, I was able to make a couple references to improv, and I'd like to make a reference to dancing, because on the dance floor, there's a difference between mechanics and style. And the templates help us to move the mechanics, team mechanics, into muscle memory, which is a form of automation. So now that we've freed up our brain power, we can elevate our brain power toward the creativity, the style. And that applies on and off the dance floor. So let's treasure and give the respect to templates that they help our jobs be easier, and they help us elevate our focus into being more unique, more creative, more strategic. And so I think I just want to appreciate templates in that way, that they help creativity and style, and they are culture shaping.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And for all those watching, if you scan the QR code now, you will be taken over to Robert's new book. So you can go ahead and purchase that. It's a great read. So get that in your basket straight away. And Suchitra, if I could come to you for your closing remarks too.
Actually, yes, I agree with the panelists. It's been a great episode and some fantastic questions as well. So thank you to all our viewers who dialed in.
Wonderful. And well done, everyone. Thank you so much. And over on our website, you can search the answers to over 2,600 questions. It's a free resource connecting you with experts from around the world. And don't forget, you can also listen to Level Up Your Career as an audio version on your preferred podcast platform. So just search Level Up Your Career and you will find us there. We have some fantastic events coming up over the next 2 weeks. On Friday, the 12th of July, we will come back to part 2 of how to build a strong business case in 2024. And then on Monday, the 15th of July, we'll be discussing how to become a chartered project manager in 2024. You will have to register for this event, so do click the link in the chat and you can sign up there to secure your seats. And on the 16th of July, we have a very interesting event around service management, the USM Revolution, Service Management Unlocked. So you will have to register for this event as well. So make sure you head over to our website, apmginternational.com, and register to secure your seat early. And just ask, and we will send you a personal summary of what's coming up and how you too can join us here on the panel and level up your career with APMG International. Thanks, everyone. Have a lovely week, and we will see you next time.